Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happen every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Send us an email at womensportsweeklypod@gmail.com and we may feature your email on the pod.
March Madness is in full swing. Our bracket is live. You cannot join anymore, but we do want to share about what we want to provide as a prize for our March Madness bracket. So we are working on some Women's Sports Weekly merch. If the merch is ready in time, the winner of the bracket will be the first one to receive some Women's Sports Weekly merch. You'll get to decide what you want and we'll send it out to you. We are hoping to have merch that we can do a pre-order for. And so we'll collect what people want. We'll have it open for a certain amount of time. We'll close it and then we'll order specifically what people want and then we'll send it out. So it may take a little bit of extra time, but we do want to be mindful of the money that we're putting forward. So we want to make sure that you all get exactly what you want.
And this is exciting because people have been asking for some merch and I'm super excited to see what we come up with.
I'm going to wear our merch all the time.
Yes.
On top of that, we have Run Club going every Thursday at the 99ers beginning at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. This week's word for Run Club is
madness.
Madness. All right.
Is that too on the nose?
It's great. So if you come to Run Club this week and you say madness, you will get 50% off your first draft beer at the 99ers.
Hope we see all of you there.
We are deep in the madness. And last week, I feel like we were a little bit forgetful and I had to fact check some things. So let's go back. Let's rewind. We were talking about TCU. You were upset that TCU got the higher seed than Notre Dame.
Oh yeah, I will take this. TCU beat Notre Dame earlier in the year. I will say this was in November. This might have escaped my brain. And I still stand on my words that I think Notre Dame will whip their ass if they meet again. So I do not feel bad.
So she's standing on it.
I still think Notre Dame's a better team. We'll see. But to the people who called us out, yes, TCU did beat Notre Dame earlier this year, and we did not mention that last episode.
Yes, we also forgot to mention that USC and UConn are in the same region, and UConn actually beat USC. So we were wondering if your dad was going to be okay because he is such a UConn fan, but we know that USC, especially Lindsey Gottlieb, is not crazy about this regional setup. One more fact check from last week. When I was speaking about the NWSL, I said that the Championship Cup was a rematch of the NWSL finals. And although that was true for this year, historically, the Championship Cup, the game that they play at the preseason, that doesn't count, but they do win money and a trophy. It is a matchup between the Shield winner, so the person who had the best record, and the championship winner. But since Orlando won both the Shield and the championship last year, they chose the runner-up to compete in the Championship Cup. We always appreciate your corrections, so keep sending them our way. We are going to make mistakes in the future. And we love when our listeners are like, hey, you forgot to mention this.
Yep.
You didn't say that. And we're going to keep going.
I agree.
With all that being said, with all this madness, I do want to take time to do an ad for ourselves. So we don't have anyone sponsoring us, but we're going to sponsor ourselves for a second. And we're going to ask you to please rate and subscribe to our podcast. We are small and we are growing and we want to keep doing this. So if you like this podcast, we're not asking you to pay anything. We just ask you to rate, subscribe, and share the podcast with people you love.
Even if you just share it with one person, that would go a long way.
This past weekend, we met some listeners out at an event, which we are going to talk about, and they were asking us how the podcast was going, and they were very much under the impression that we were with a network and we are getting paid. Although we partner with the Women's Sports Podcast Network, it is not paid. It is a partnership where we help each other. We create this podcast, we produce this podcast, and we edit it all ourselves. We do not get paid. We actually spend a lot of money on this podcast, which I'm not asking for any pity. We are very happy to do it because we are fans and we love this podcast. And also, we both have regular jobs that we work, and it's a lot, but we're happy to do it. So please, if you want to support us, please rate, subscribe, give us a positive review, share with the people you love. It would mean so much to us, and it truly goes such a long way.
It helps other people find us, and we love our listeners and just want to continue to grow.
I'm looking forward to this growth. Let's get into our weekend because we did something so fun.
Yes.
This past weekend, 3 WNBA players came into Denver. Michaela Onyenwere from the Chicago Sky was hosting a camp here in Denver because she is from the Denver area.
Yeah, she actually went to Grandview High School where Lauren Betts went and Lauren Betts' sister currently goes. So apparently a ton of great basketball players come out of that high school. Really cool to see her come back and get back to the youth in the area through a basketball camp.
She's a Hall of Famer now at Grandview High School, which is amazing. So she came back to host a camp in Denver, and she came with Jordin Canada from the Atlanta Dream and Charisma Osborne, who was drafted by the Phoenix Mercury last year.
And the 3 of these players all played for UCLA, which I just love because I think about the relationships I've made with my college teammates and to see them continue to be close. Not even all 3 of them necessarily played with each other because Jordin Canada is a little older. Then comes Michaela. So Michaela played with Jordin. And then you have Charisma, who also played with Michaela. But really cool to hear from all of them about their time at UCLA and Coach Corey and then their experience getting drafted to the WNBA. Honestly, just I feel like they were so humble and just really genuinely cool and nice people.
For sure. And this all came together because we have to give all the props to the WNBA Club in Denver.
Yes.
They heard about this camp. They reached out to Michaela's people and said, we want to volunteer at the camp. And then they said, hey, would you want to do a meet and greet at the 99ers, have people come in, get to know you more, answer some questions, and then do some pictures and signings and things like that. The WNBA Club figured out sponsorship to pay the players to come to the 99ers. I mean, just really amazing things that they were able to pull off in a short amount of time. The 99ers were great hosts and said, yes, bring them in, especially during March Madness when there are a lot of things going on at the bar. And then the WNBA Club asked us if we would moderate the question and answer portion, which was so fun.
Shout out to them because very grateful we got to be a part of that and meet the players and ask them questions and then kind of network with people who came out to the event to also ask questions.
Yeah, so you mentioned that the players were great. I'm always so impressed. We've met some WNBA players at Unrivaled. Now we met them here this past weekend, and they are so gracious with their time. Just amazing to be around and happy to answer questions and happy to speak to people. They took a lot of time to speak to the people that were there. What were some of your other takeaways from the time with them?
One of the things that really stuck out to me was how they talked about their time at UCLA and how they talked about Coach Corey. It sounds like Coach Corey has a really strong bond with her players and she does different activities with the team that goes a long way. Like Jordin Canada had mentioned many things that she learned. And Jordin Canada, she's been in the league for 8 years now. So she's been out of college for a while. And she says there's been things that she did in college that she still takes with her to this day. And I just think that's pretty incredible to hear. So that was one of the things that really stuck out to me.
Jordin Canada was saying like Corey Close, who's the head coach at UCLA, had them write down every day that their worth was not in how they performed, but in who they were. And I mean it's just amazing. These coaches are not setting them up to be pro players, which they are because of the values they instill with them, but they're setting them up to be good humans, which just goes such a long way.
For sure. What stood out for you?
Yeah, there were a couple things. So Charisma Osborne was talking about playing with Diana Taurasi at the Phoenix Mercury and was so complimentary and was like, I never got the DT that other people saw because I was on her team. Charisma Osborne was injured, and she said DT always went out of her way to connect with her, spend time, and ask her how she was doing. And she also said, which no surprise because we've had some interactions with Natasha Cloud, that Natasha Cloud was always, again, going out of her way to connect with Charisma, who is a rookie on the team and was suffering an injury. And, you know, you don't have to do that. And to have leaders on the team who do that, amazing.
Yeah. Jordin also said she's only had positive experiences with DT, but Michaela cracked me up because she said her experience with DT, she got clotheslined in a game against her. And she said, yeah, if you're on Diana Taurasi's team, she's going to be great. But if you're not on her team, she is not going to be great to you. She was cracking up when telling that story, but that was just fun for them to talk about that.
Yes, we also got into talking about the CBA that's coming up, and both Jordin and Michaela mentioned some key things that I think is helpful to share with listeners, because I think we as fans can put some pressure on for this CBA to think about what the players want. And if we as fans say this is important and they should be getting this, there's enough fans now where I feel like we can start to put some pressure on Instagram, in comments, slide into Kathy Engelbert's DMs.
And I'm going to make you go back a little bit. Remind our listeners, what is the CBA?
So the CBA is a collective bargaining agreement that is ending this year. The WNBA has a union. And that union, every few years, depending on how long the CBA is, they negotiate their contract and they ask for things. It's kind of this give and take between the union and the WNBA organization. The three things that stood out to me one was pay, increased pay, and revenue sharing. Yep. The other one that Jordin Canada was talking about quite a bit was parental support.
And I thought it was cool that she talked about this because she said, I don't have kids. But getting to know Brittany Griner more and different players, she realizes the impact it has on families. And she's like, this would go such a long way for the women in our league.
And Unrivaled had childcare support. And Jordin Canada was at Unrivaled. She was on vinyl. We're going to get into Unrivaled, made it to the championship. So she saw that firsthand, how it could have a positive impact.
Yep.
And then the last one that they mentioned was a pension, which I think is such a great idea. Creating a pension for players, because you don't play in the WNBA for a very long time. Unfortunately, professional sports has a time limit because of aging. And to have a pension set up for players who are going to retire, for players who have put their body on the line for years, who, in order to be good at the sport, you have to give it your everything, where you can't have really side hustles and things like this, although women do that really well because they have to. I think a pension is such a great idea.
Very smart. It's not something I would have ever thought of. It was cool to hear them talk about that and to hear little inside scoop of what they're already talking about within the union to start negotiating.
Yes. So the 3 Ps were my takeaways: pay, parental support, and pension.
Nice. PPP.
But we just had such a great time with them. This is the cool stuff that we get to do because we decided to start a podcast over a year ago.
Thanks to everyone who was involved in putting this together and for having us, and to the players who came out, and to everyone who came out to support the players and ask questions. Overall, really great night.
All right, let's get into a listener email. We have been workshopping some names, and I want to workshop now a name to you. I want to call this section the Listener Experience Zone, but I want to shorten it because I love an acronym, to the LES.
When I was looking through our notes going into this episode, I saw this and actually laughed out loud.
Yay! Okay, so we're going to stick with the LES, the Listener Experience Zone, because sometimes people ask us questions, sometimes they provide us comments. So today is more of a comment, so I'm excited to get into it. Do you want to read?
Sure. So just to give some background, last week we were talking about how the top 4 seeds in each region get to host at their home court. And Carolyn and I had talked about this is not something we like. We think it would be better to have it at a neutral site. So we did have a listener write in to give their perspective on this, which I love. So I'll read the email now. Hello, I listened to your podcast today. I disagree about hosting and wanted to give the opposite opinion. I love that higher seeds get to host, and I hope they do it forever. I am a UNC fan, and I was locked in at the end of the season as they tried to secure a hosting bid. And I am so excited they are hosting for the first time in forever, even though I can't attend, and I'm very grumpy about that. It raises the stakes of the regular season. There are 2 bubbles. Will we make the tournament? And will we get to host? It creates a better environment for the first 2 rounds. The men's first round seemed kind of stale and boring after watching the women's games. The upsets are much more exciting when they happen. Remember Miami at Indiana or Ole Miss at Stanford? Overall, I think the home sites make the women's tournament much more fun than the men's. I'm also wary of the drive to neutral sites because from a lot of casuals, not accusing you of that, it is seen as an advancement because it would be more like the men's tournament. I don't really think the men's tournament is a blueprint just to follow because it's men's sports. Honestly, they should adopt hosting and quarters instead of halves. I love that this listener is saying the men should adopt what the women are doing. That's awesome. Anyways, sorry for the long email. Happy March Madness and go Heels. Katie.
I agree with Katie on that last part. I do not think in order for the women's game to reach a certain level, I think they're already here.
Yeah, for sure. We don't need to follow every little thing the men's tournament does. I agree.
100%. I don't think we should. I think we should find ways to do things our own way.
I will say, though, I still stand on, I think it would be cool to be at neutral sites. And here's my opposing opinion. Yes, it is great for the teams who host, but when I watch some games, if it's two teams on this home court and neither of them are from that school, like if you're hosting at UNC and it's two non-UNC teams playing, then who's coming to those games?
Yeah.
That's where I feel like there's a loss, but you can look at it in many different ways.
Yeah, and I think the counter to that would be, well, if we have it in a neutral site, who's coming to any? But I don't think we would see that anymore.
Yeah, I just think when you have so many fans concentrated in one area from that specific school, that's who they're going to focus on. Where when you're at a neutral site, people just come because there's games happening. I don't know.
I also just have to give a shout out to my cousins. So my cousins and my aunt were scheduled to go to London this past weekend, and there was a fire at Heathrow Airport. So their flight got canceled. And so they were like, well, we still want to go somewhere. Where should we go? I don't know if they flew or drove. They're in New Jersey. So I'm guessing they drove up to Storrs, Connecticut. Maybe they flew and watched the UConn games and all the other games that were happening there this past weekend, which was awesome.
I'm pretty jealous, actually, that they were there and we weren't.
Katie, thank you so much for sending us that email. That was like such a well-crafted counterpoint to what we provide. I was so impressed by it. I'm happy that people who listen to us don't always agree with us.
Absolutely.
It's what makes this great. Thank you so much for reaching out. And I won't say go Tar Heels, but I'm hoping good things for you. Let's get into the highlight reel for the week. I know we're a little late, but we need to talk about the Unrivaled Finals.
I can't believe the inaugural Unrivaled season is over.
So good. The Vinyl beat the Lunar Owls 73-70 to get to the final. The Lunar Owls were the number one seed and the favorite, so this semifinal game was crazy.
I mean, they only had one loss going into this game, and then the Vinyl just came in and were like, nope, we are taking this from you.
When we were at Unrivaled, the Vinyl were the players we got to interview the most, and they were amazing.
Jordin Canada this past weekend, again, we got to see her after going to the championship in Unrivaled because she also plays for the Vinyl.
And then also in the semifinals, the Rose beat the Laces 63-57. We need to talk about this because Chelsea Gray went off and scored 39 points, the most points from any player in a single game at Unrivaled.
Honestly, from the weekend we were there on, she has just been a menace on the court. Unbelievable between the passing, the scoring. She has been so fun to watch, and you could just see that she feels so much more in her element.
In that semifinal game, she shot 15 of 23 from the floor, including 5 for 8 from the three with the winning three-pointer. So the final was Rose versus Vinyl, and one of my faves, Brittany Sykes, scored the winning free throw as the Rose beat the Vinyl 62-54 to win Unrivaled's inaugural championship. Chelsea Gray obviously won playoff MVP. In the finals, she had an 18-point, 8-assist performance. And also the other thing we need to talk about is each player on the championship winning team took home $50,000 in prize money. That's a nice little way to cap off your experience at Unrivaled.
Yeah, get that money. They also did this with Angel Reese being injured and Iman being able to play. And she's been a big part of their team this past season.
And Cockhopper.
Yeah. So for them to be able to pull this off, get that money, good for them. I'm just so excited to see what Unrivaled continues to be in future seasons.
And I am excited to see Chelsea Gray back in form with the Aces.
I can't wait to see all these players go back to the W. I just feel like this has been or will be instrumental to their success moving forward. Everyone we've talked to who's played there have said that, like, getting their confidence back, being able to have some fun with it, working with different coaches, meeting different players. Yep. I just feel like this is going to go such a long way.
Amazing from start to finish. I'm
I
so
agree.
impressed by Unrivaled. Also, another highlight, we'll move over to the NWSL. Back into Denver because Denver's NWSL expansion team announced that they are going to build a purpose-built stadium here in Denver. It's set to open in 2028.
Oh,
and Danielle,
that feels so far away.
I know. You're very impatient with the 2028.
I am.
The
I want it now. I want someone to just plop it on the land and it be ready right now.
The team will start playing in 2026, but the new stadium will not open until 2028. 14,500 seats with an option to grow more if needed. It is very close to our house.
Sure is.
It is walking distance if we're ready to put on some walking shoes. It is definitely biking distance.
Yeah.
I am so excited. I also have been telling everyone about this, but there better be space at that location for a WNBA / PWHL arena, because Denver is going to show up and show out, and you might as well just put the space there. And then all three of those teams can have a similar practice facility.
Yep.
It'll be cost efficient. They'll get to interact with other players. I think that would be so cool to have a little women's corner in Denver.
I agree. I really can't wait to see what they come up with. Next highlight, we have Natasha Cloud going to the New York Liberty. I was so happy when I saw this because Natasha Cloud has been with the Phoenix Mercury and all of a sudden found out she was being traded to the Connecticut Sun.
After she was like hard at Unrivaled trying to get Satu to come to Phoenix, jokingly offering Satu her apartment, and then she got traded.
And just the way she got treated, like, I'm pretty sure she said she found out on social media, like, wasn't even told. I just know that was an emotional time for her. As a reminder, literally no one is at the Connecticut Sun right now. So she'd be going.
Well, there's one person.
Poor Marina Mabrey is stuck at the Connecticut Sun, but that whole team.
And Tina Charles.
I'll take that back. So many people on the Connecticut Sun are going to different teams now. So it's not like she was coming into this powerhouse of a team that they just had. And she was upset about this, but now she's getting picked up by the New York Liberty. The trade was agreed upon with the Connecticut Sun to get Natasha Cloud in exchange for the number 7 overall pick in the 2025 WNBA draft and New York's 2026 future first round pick.
I also think this is a great move because Courtney Vandersloot is headed to Chicago and there's a gap there. And Natasha Cloud has now played with Sabrina Ionescu. They know how to interact with each other. Natasha Cloud is an amazing person on defense, and that's honestly somewhere where Sabrina lacks a little bit. So she'll be able to cover that. Natasha Cloud, like you mentioned, was previously with the Phoenix Mercury, but she did play 8 seasons for the Washington Mystics, played for the Phoenix Mercury, short time at the Connecticut Sun, didn't even step on the court, and now she is with the New York Liberty. I love this for her because she has been so honest about her mental health, and I know that this was a hard time for her, and I'm happy that she's landing in New York. Her girlfriend also plays for the New York Liberty, Isabel Harrison, so I am looking forward to some potential coordinated tunnel fits. I feel like we have not talked about fashion enough on this podcast in way too long, so it's coming back.
Yeah, it definitely has to.
And then finally, is Marina Mabrey going to be okay?
I don't know. It's going to be interesting how the Suns shake out, but I think they're about to have a rough year.
Yeah. As much as Marina Mabrey she's going to talk her talk and be very annoying on the court, I do really like her.
What have I said? I've liked her forever, and you finally got to meet her in person, and now you're on board.
Yeah. I want the best for every WNBA player because they're all just so kind.
You can't not like any of them.
Yeah. All right, let's deep dive into March Madness. We're not going to go into the games of round 1, but let's talk about some takeaways from the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Yes, I would just like to say after day 1, my bracket was perfect.
They're a small percentage, but in the Women's Sports Weekly,
1.7% of all brackets.
After that first day were perfect. So
Yep.
only 1.7. But I'll tell you, in the Women's Sports Weekly bracket, we have some good pickers because there were like 3 or 4 people that were perfect after day 1, which is really impressive.
Day 2 was a little more dicey, and my bracket is no longer perfect. There haven't been a ton of upsets, but we did have a few in the first round.
Number 9, Mississippi State beat number 8, Cal.
And one of the takeaways we said we agreed upon, and we were talking about this when we were talking about our brackets, is if there was an SEC team and like any other conference, unless it was like a UCLA or USC, we were both picking the SEC team in these upsets.
However, an SEC team did get beat. Oregon number 10 beat Vanderbilt number 7 in overtime. I didn't have that pick.
This is true. And I had different picks in different brackets, and I'm so pissed at myself that I didn't pick Oregon to beat Vanderbilt in all of them.
They had a good run. Number 10, South Dakota State beat Oklahoma State, the Jackrabbits.
This one also killed me. I just did not expect this from the stupid Jackrabbits.
Hey, a jackrabbit's a great animal.
I'm only mad because of my brackets. Sorry, Jackrabbits.
And number 9, Indiana beat number 8, Utah. So this 8-9 matchup seemed to cause some trouble in the first round, and the 7-10 matchup seemed to cause some trouble. So we'll have to keep that in mind for next year if you can remember it.
Yes.
And then also in the first round, Kentucky number 4 almost lost to Liberty number 13, 79-78.
There were some other games with the 13-4 seed that were very close up until like the fourth quarter. So that was interesting too.
My other takeaway is that for the first time in NCAA history, 6 teams, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Tennessee, UConn, Texas, and LSU each put up 100 points or more in the first round. Some dominating wins in the first round.
That is a lot of scoring.
However, we get into the second round and you can already see things are going to be dicey.
Yes, we did pick one game to highlight in the second round. Obviously, there's so many games happening, so we can't talk about all of them. But we did want to highlight Kansas State University versus the University of Kentucky. This was an overtime game and a heartbreaker for the University of Kentucky, but Kansas State won 80-79 in overtime. Kentucky had multiple chances in the last 8 seconds of the game, but they just couldn't put one in. Georgia Amoore had a shot that rolled right off the rim right before the buzzer, and she hit so many great shots in the fourth quarter and overtime to even keep them that close that I really felt bad for her that last shot didn't go in.
I am a simp for Georgia Amoore. I love her so much. So it was a tough one to watch. But we also need to talk about your reactions in this game.
So I have different brackets, and I thought I had Kansas State winning in all my brackets. But then I realized in our Women's Sports Weekly bracket, I had Kentucky winning, but my other ones I had Kansas State. So anyways, at one point in the fourth quarter, Kansas State was down 2 and they just were chucking up threes this whole time. And one went in and I jumped up. Carolyn, you were on the floor in the sauna blanket and I had to jump over you.
I was like, I'm going to die in this sauna blanket.
And this sounds weird, but my foot has been bothering me from running. So I've been, what's it called? Scraping it?
Yeah, with a Graston.
So I had to put a lot of lotion on it to make sure when I scrape it, it's not bad. My foot flew out from underneath of me when I jumped up and I almost fell on Carolyn.
Okay, so we need to paint this picture. So we're in our living room.
Which is not very big.
Yeah, our house is small. Scout's on the couch.
We have 2 TVs set up there. So there's
it's a mess. 2 TVs to give you all the content because we want to make sure we're
watching
informed.
All the games.
Danielle's on the couch, feet out, lotion on, just working on her feet. I am half naked in a sauna blanket because I'm trying to recover, trying to take care of myself while watching these games. And Danielle doesn't even know who she's rooting for. But Kansas State
I was rooting for Kansas State. This was before I realized I picked Kentucky on some of my brackets.
They score. And
I jumped up so fast and my foot flew out from underneath of me. I don't know how I caught myself, but I think I would have broke your kneecaps if I fell on you.
Definitely. And I just picture me. I'm a little burrito, literally wrapped up in foil.
Scout didn't even know what to do with herself. She was just staring and was like, what is happening?
The joys. Y'all should really come over and watch some games with us. It is a spa / recovery center / craziness happening because Danielle is so wrapped up in all her brackets.
It's fun, but at the end of the day, I'm not a fan of Kansas State or Kentucky.
Yeah.
But to be in such a close game and for me to be so invested, that's what makes this so fun. Yes. Because you have your brackets, you're doing well in your brackets, and you want to continue to do well. So I'm screaming at the TV, jumping up and down. It just makes it so fun to be in this time of year.
All right. So who did well in this game?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Back to this game. So As I mentioned, Georgia Amoore was at Virginia Tech last year, but Kenny Brooks had announced he was leaving Virginia Tech, the head coach, and going to University of Kentucky, and Georgia Amoore went with him. They have a really close player-coach relationship. Georgia Amoore has had such a great collegiate career. She's just fun to watch. She played great in this game. She finished with 18 points, and this is her final collegiate game. Congrats to Georgia on an amazing career. Looking forward to see how she pans out in the WNBA draft.
Yeah, I hope she goes to the draft because I would like to see what she wears.
I've heard her talking about, you mean like actually go in person?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
like
sure
she's definitely going to
will.
get drafted and
I'm sure she'll
see.
be there in person.
Yeah, but I want to see what she's wearing at the draft.
Yes. With that, 6'5" sophomore Clara Strack on Kentucky also added 22 points for the Wildcats. She had some great plays down low. But we must talk about Kansas State University and the players that really showed up for this game, especially Kansas State senior Tamira Poindexter, who had 8 3-pointers. I mean, the girl was on fire.
And they weren't guarding her. I was like, I see her open right now. Why is not one person near her?
And she didn't score any 2-pointers, no foul shots, just 8 3-pointers and ended with 24 points. Absolutely amazing. That is my kind of player. And then senior Serena Sundell also added 19 points for Kentucky State. And we have to talk about grad student Aoka Lee, who finished with 16 points. I wanted to mention her because she has been out most of this season due to injury. The first round game for the tournament was her first game back. And now this is her second game back. And you could tell she's getting back into it. But she was definitely key in this game because, you have a 6'5" sophomore on Kentucky, and now you have Aoka Lee in the center position, and she did make an impact on this game. She had some huge shots, big rebounds, so it was good for them to see her back.
She sets herself up well down low.
Yes.
It's amazing how she can find her positioning. And also, I want to apologize to everyone because I told everyone to pick Fairfield to beat Kansas State in the first round. Because I was like, we don't know if Aoka Lee's going to be back. We're hearing that she's coming back, but we don't know. And she's back.
Let it be known, I picked Kansas State to beat University of Kentucky in most of my brackets. How's your bracket doing, by the way?
That's so rude.
How's your bracket doing for the WNBA Club of Denver?
I didn't even fill it out.
A zero. A big fat zero under the Women's Sports Weekly name. Just let it be known I did not submit these picks. Carolyn, next year I'm in charge.
I did all the picks, so I must not have hit submit.
But how's
somewhere.
your other bracket doing?
No, horrible. My brackets are doing horribly.
Let me do this. Anyhow, Kansas State is going on to the Sweet 16.
And March Madness just continues. So talk about what you're looking forward to this week.
Yeah. By the way, my butt kind of hurts from sitting on the couch for so many hours in a row, but I can't be taken away from the TV.
We're going to get bed sores. March Madness bed sores.
Literally, I come home from runs and I just plant my butt on the couch all day. So with that, I am looking forward to the Sweet 16. This will be played on Friday, March 28th and Saturday, March 29th. And then you have the Elite 8 on Sunday, March 30th and Monday, March 31st. So next weekend is going to be another 4 days straight of March Madness, which this is really the best time of year. I just love it.
People are asking Danielle to make plans and she's just like, nope,
I'm just
can't
like,
be there.
Well, there's games on, so I don't think I'm going to come, but thank you for the invite.
Don't ask Danielle to do anything.
Games begin on Friday at 2:30 p.m. on ESPN. And then on Saturday, games will begin at 1 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Cannot wait. What are you looking forward to?
I do want to shout out some rugby. The Women's Elite Rugby League kicked off this past weekend. As a reminder, there are 6 teams, and there is a team in Denver, which is very exciting. The Denver Onyx will host the Bay Breakers this Saturday, March 29th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. If you're in the Denver area and you want to go get some tickets. They are affordable. We are actually planning to go to a game. And I think we're going to go with our run club because they are down for it.
I love
so
that.
We'll be talking a little bit more about rugby as the season goes on. All games are free to watch on the streaming service DAZN. I think it might be called DAZN or DAZN. I forget. But it's DAZN and they're free. You have to download the app, but then it's free to watch those games. And yeah, we can't wait to see one in person.
Yes, I'm excited.
That's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends and keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.